to the cloud. Here we go. All right, so again, welcome to our August meeting. Our topic for the day will be the CPMAI training and certification. There are a couple of resources down there that are highlighted with the white circles. We do want to point those out. I think Christina will mouse over those and pop those links into chat. There's an AI link there as well. I think I'm waiting for the links myself because I've already forgotten what those three resources are. One of them is
They are, sorry, they are, the first one is for our community group. So with a little like globe and people around it, that will take you to our Educause community group. The second one will take you to the CPMAI certification page. And then the last one will take you to the Educause annual conference. And I'll copy and paste those in just a moment.
Yeah, so those will be available when the presentation is loaded to our Connect space. But we'll, in the meantime, also put them in the chat space like Christina said. So here we go. We've got some PMCG business to take care of. I promise it will be short and sweet. I don't want to take up too much time. Then we'll hop into our presentation with our guest speaker, Ron and Yvonne, talking about the AI certification for project management, and then some blurbs and verbiage about our annual conference that we want to highlight there. So the Educause annual conference. I should not say our, it's not the PMCG annual conference, it's Educause's annual conference. I need to watch my possessive pronouns there. Let's hop on to that next slide. So this is the steering committee. Every year we cycle through our officers, and so I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Jen Birch. She was our lead co-chair, if you will. She did a phenomenal job. Her service, the time she spent getting things organized, running the steering committee, and that motley crew of characters is appreciated. And then it becomes now my turn to take the reins, and I've got some big shoes to fill. You're looking at our steering committee. There's Christina, Alex, Carol. Erin is a new member of our steering committee. We really appreciate her willingness to step forward. She was running an IT governance working group, if you will, not necessarily a community group. She needed some help with some of the logistics, and so we just kind of combined forces, and we will hopefully in our programming have IT governance topics about every semester to every quarter. And then we've got Jen Birch standing in as kind of ex officio, and John Preddy, you may remember him, he was co-chair for a while. With all those introductions, I would be remiss if, I also need to say farewell to Michael Shishadi. He was our steering committee secretary, and he is stepping down because he just needs to focus on things going on at his campus. So because of that, now we've got two spots open for anyone who's interested in joining the steering committee, help out with establishing programming and all the tasks that it takes to keep the monthly meetings running. So if you are interested, why don't we handle it this way? If you are interested in joining, why don't you reach out to me? I'm putting my email address in the chat. And you can answer any questions about the commitment. Just broad strokes here. As you start into the steering committee, you can estimate about 4 hours a month, if that, and that's kind of a high estimate. It really depends on what duties or responsibilities you take in. A lot of people like to ease into it, and nothing wrong with that. So you can definitely reach out to me with any questions. All right. I'm pausing to make sure I didn't miss anything. Looks like I covered all that. Now we get into our meeting schedule. You can see there on the right-hand side, Christina's done an excellent job of showing our schedule going through next June. You can kind of see in broad strokes what our topics will be. Anywhere you see the phrase regular meeting, it usually means that we don't necessarily have a topic for that session. So if you're interested in presenting, just say so at the community group discussion or reach out to one of us. It doesn't have to be a conference grade presentation. Some people use this as a forum just to share their ideas, what they've learned, what they're passionate about, so on and so forth. Great way to cut your teeth on talking to a group of people, and the steering committee can help you through all that. You can see there on the left, I am going to speed up because I'm eating into the presentation time a bit. Our topics range anywhere from coffee talks, popular topics that we happen to see in the discussion boards, guest speakers. And speaking of popular topics that we happen to see in the discussion board, I believe that's a good segue to the next slide. I think I took over your slide, Christina, because you were going to talk about that.
It's okay.
So I'll let you talk about the news then.
Sure. So, we have a little bit of news, whatever is going on in the PMCG, we'll update you. Some fun things to look forward to is for those of you who are going to Educause, there's some pre-conference workshops that are being run by our very own Ed and Carol. Their workshop is project management and higher ed, blending strategy, technology, and human skills. And then Jen Birch will be giving a workshop on aligning people, projects, and priorities, a practical guide to capacity and resource management. So for those of you who have registered for the conference or are still planning to register, those are some things that you can look forward to at the conference. And then we're putting together our monthly meeting schedule. Like Ed said, it's a combination of guest speakers, presentations, coffee talks. And you also don't have to have like a long presentation to fill up the whole meeting. So if you are thinking about like something that you want to talk about, but you're worried that it won't fill up the whole meeting, don't worry about it. Just, feel free to reach out. The other thing that we have is a survey form, and that is another hyperlink right there where it says survey form to the form itself. So if you have a suggestion for a meeting topic or a guest speaker that you have in mind, that would be great for our community group. Please let us know. You can use the same form to ask about presenting during a meeting. Or suggest ways for us to improve the meetings. This is here for everybody here in joining and participating. And so it's important for us to make it worth your time. So if you have any feedback on how we can improve the meetings, that's also welcome. And if you have any exciting news that you want to share that you'd like us to highlight it during a meeting, you can also submit that via the form. I am sharing my screen. So once I stop sharing, I will post all of those links into the chat because I don't want to navigate away from anything, mess anything up, but I will get all those posted later when I'm not sharing. And I will go to our next slide. So when we'll start getting into the presentation, Ed, I'll hand it back to you.
Yes, and I've been looking forward to this. Speaking of discussion topics and popular topics, this was a very popular topic, judging from everyone's response to Yvonne's initial post, which was essentially, paraphrasing here, yes, exclamation point, I am interested, was what a lot of our community group said. So here we go. We're going to talk with Ron, and he'll do about a 30-minute presentation about this certification. I don't want to steal too much of his thunder. Then we'll transition over to Yvonne. He'll talk about her experiences as well. And with that, that's our cue to stop sharing and pass the baton over to Ron. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all. I'm really thrilled to be spending time with you and sharing, the conversation that everybody's having pretty much every moment, which of course is AI and its impacts on everything that we're doing. It's sort of that's an unescapable moment that we're in. And I think it provides obviously a lot of opportunities for us as practitioners as we deliver projects for the world. And you might actually see here, I'm going to share my deck here that the first slide, let me just get that going here. It says on the bottom, winning with AI winning with AI projects and how we're getting ahead. Obviously, this is a talk a little about CPMAI methodology, but I crossed out the word tomorrow's projects because really we're talking about today's projects. In many ways, it really feels like for those of us who have been around the block a few times, where we are with AI right now in the mid 2020s, this decade feels a lot like where we were with the internet in the mid 1990s. Obviously, there's a lot of differences, but it feels like we all knew that there was this possibility. We all knew that like this internet was going to change everything, but nobody was exactly quite sure. There was a lot of experimentation. Hype abounded, stock markets going crazy. We were like 3 or 4 years before the dot-com crash in the mid-90s. So we still hadn't quite yet reached the peak of those expectations. And if you recall from that period of the internet, like it took like another decade for things like social media to appear. Even YouTube didn't show up until 2004, 2005, well after the dot-com boom and crash, right? So it goes to show that even with these big transformative experiences, it takes time for people to sort of really figure out what it means for them. But in the meantime, it's like we're all in this mode where we're trying to apply it and make it make sense for us, while also not letting it get out of control, which is one of the unique challenges with AI that maybe is different than, than the internet and some of the other things. So just jumping into a little bit, as I mentioned, I really do want to make this interactive. I have this sort of a shortish version and kind of kept it to about 30 minutes, maybe so I can give time to hear from Yvonne and hear from her awesome, amazing experiences and as she's experienced CPMAI as it's been even developing over the past many years. So, give you a couple of stats here. You probably have seen many of these. You know, PwC not too long ago put out a survey of their executives and found that 88% of them said that AI is a strategic priority. I think this was like a 2000, late 2004, early 2005, 2024. Geez, what decade am I in? 2024, 2025. And that's really not that surprising. Kind of what is surprising is maybe like the 12% that say that it's not a strategic priority. I'm kind of wondering about those folks. But at the same time, we have other surveys. As a matter of fact, one just came out from MIT this week that talked about how 95% of generative AI projects are struggling to find success. You may or may not have seen that study. That was just this week. But prior to that, MIT put out another previous study that showed that 54% of AI projects are not delivering measurable value. Workday presented a study that said that 81% of workers feel they're underprepared for working with AI. That actually may be understating facts, actually. And 70% of companies who are working with AI still say they're in the experimental phase. They're still trying it out, trying to figure out what it's good for. Obviously, all these things can't merge with each other because if AI is supposed to be strategic, it's supposed to be delivering value. And we need to be able to, we need to know how to work with it because we are delivering that value. And at the same time, it can't be experimental if it's delivering value. It needs to be in the core of whatever we're delivering. So as I said, we're like in this curious moment where in many ways the capabilities and the technology of AI is exceeding or is surpassing our abilities to apply it to our abilities. So we see a lot of these mismatches. I talk about this a lot because when Cognilytica was started, we actually started as a research advisory firm, an analyst firm. We were tracking the markets. And, you know, in most sort of normal markets, right, you know, customer demand tends to push what the features and functions of products are, tends to push customers towards one thing or another. We even see it even in the cloud space. You know, usually the customers are demanding things and the companies are responding to that demand. But that's not what's happening with AI. What's happening is that these vendors are competing with each other so furiously that they're delivering capabilities well ahead of customer demand. Which is leading us to like models are coming out like every week, new agentic solutions. Meanwhile, people are like, wait, I still haven't dealt with the model 3 models ago. So this is the market we're in, and that's because I think these companies in this space are realizing that this is the new competitive landscape, and whoever owns the AI landscape will be ahead. So I just want to let you all know that if you're feeling a little bit of the FOMO, the catching up thing, that's the normal feeling right now. So one of the things we've observed in about a decade of trying to run and manage these AI projects is that even in the best organizations with the best people and the best technology, we were finding our AI projects were, well, falling over because we didn't really have consistent practices. We didn't have consistent processes. So we have this weird sort of paradox with AI that even though things are highly variable with AI, the technology is constantly changing, we want to have consistency in our projects, right? We want to be able to plan for more than a few months out and say, well, at the beginning of this, I'm going to deliver some project that makes use of AI, and at the end, I want to be able to deliver it. But in the meantime, everything else is changing. The models are changing, the technology is changing, the data is changing. So of course, the question is, how do we get consistency in the face of continuous change? That's really what process is all about, methodology. We need to have methods that are capable of dealing with this consistent change and variability in AI. And this came about from two projects, a few projects that we had done back about a decade ago. One was for a large governmental agency, U.S. Treasury Department. They were looking to put AI into place to handle their digitization of documents, moving from paper documents to digital ones. As you may understand, there's a lot of paper in the government, and they needed to use AI because the alternatives really weren't very effective. But they needed to also have high degree of reliability. It's like, how do you, the difference between an 8 and a 0 is pretty substantial, right? In an income tax system. So how do you get the systems to deliver the results you want and eliminate the parts you don't? We had the best people and the best technology in the world. What we were missing was this process by which we can do that quickly. Simultaneously, we were working with a large banking institution that was looking at using AI for automated loan decision making. Same thing. We needed to have a high degree of reliability because we didn't want to deny loans to people who clearly could pay for them. That would, misdeliver revenue, like under-deliver revenue. At the same time, we didn't want to approve loans for people who didn't deserve them because that would increase risk. So we had to help them. They also had great people and great technology. What they're missing was what's the process by which we can continuously iterate these at a high rate and achieve consistency. So reliability, consistency. And that's when we went out looking. We're like, well, surely there must be some approach that already exists in the market for these methodologies. And it turns out, well, I'll talk the punchline a little bit. There was an old approach, but it hadn't really been iterated much, and it wasn't iterative and agile, and didn't really include the specific things that we needed from AI. But before I get there, talk a little bit about sort of why this has, I think, come to fore now. And I like this little analogy. I have this picture of this fellow here who's got all the best baking tools in the world. He's got this fabulous mixer. He's got some sort of weird device to do stuff, and he still can't make a birthday cake, right? Look at that. Look how sad that birthday cake looks. That's because the best tools in the world can't help you deliver success if you don't know when and how to use them. And that's where we are. As I mentioned, we're like, the tools are well ahead of our capability. We have like basically all the tools we could ever hope to use. They're basically low cost, in many cases free. If you don't like how they are now, just wait a week or two. They'll change, they'll get better, maybe worse. That's a whole other story. So the reason for project failure is that we were having trouble figuring out, well, which are the right tools for the right application? When do I know when to apply AI and when not to apply AI? How do I apply AI in a way that actually delivers results? How do I do that within the acceptable time frame and ROI? How do I mitigate the many, many risks of AI and the increasing regulatory requirements? And how do I do so in a sustainable way? And we mean sustainability even in the broadest of senses. So we mean sustainability as like we can repeat it, we can continue to achieve the results we want. Sustainable also in terms of sustainable use of data, sustainable use of energy, which is now becoming a really big topic. Do we have enough energy for the data centers, which are powering so much of this growth of AI? So we have to learn. It's all about appropriate use. Like using it the right way will achieve the results without the drawbacks of the technology. So the thing that we noticed here is that the nature of AI projects is they're by nature complex. They're just complex systems because they're dynamic and they're data driven, right? This is versus complicated, right? Different word. Complicated means it has a lot of parts and there's a lot of complication, but if we understand it, then we can sort of manage the complication. Complex is the system is just inherently complex by design. We have AI systems where just a small change of the data inputs can lead to huge changes in the outputs. Many of us have already experienced playing with or using in the real world prompt-based systems, prompt engineering of all kinds, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, Grok, whatever you like, the Copilot, whatever you like. And what you know is that if you make just a small change to the prompt, it can have a huge change in the quality of the output. It goes from something that may be hallucinating to accurate, something that was like off topic to on topic, change of tone, right? Now we all kind of now are inherently realizing this butterfly effect, the garbage in, garbage out, the inherent dependency of data inputs and outputs. No surprise then if we're trying to use AI in the real world with real systems, we have to manage our AI projects like data projects. AI projects are data projects inherently. They're not application development projects. AI projects actually share more in common with spreadsheets than they do with websites, with web applications or enterprise applications, right? If I told you that, let's say I have a project where I need to create a sales forecast, and I have 100 spreadsheets from each of my salespeople or from my regions, where do you think I'm going to be spending my time? Am I going to be spending my time in the formula to do the sales forecast, or in the time spent collecting the data, making sure that the columns match each other, the data rows match each other, right? We're going to be spending all of our time on the data engineering part. The formula part's the easy part, but the formula may work, but it won't do anything if the data is garbage, right? So really, that's what makes that work. Now, if this was a website, and I'm building web app, I could have like my requirements in advance. I can build them. I can test them even. I can do QA and I can deploy it, and it will work no matter whether you're website visitor 1 or website visitor 20,000. You know, you might spot a couple bugs here or there and make some adjustments, but you can get to the steady state. That's not the case with AI. You have a model that does something. One person puts in one prompt, gets something that works for them, and they post on LinkedIn, hey, look how great this is. And then another person uses the same model, puts in a different thing, and gets something that's terrible. And then they post on LinkedIn and say, look how terrible this is. For the exact same model, right? Why is that? Because AI projects are data projects. They're not application development projects. So with that, I like to think of AI projects, you know, this game where you roll the ball from like 1 to 100. You know, you try not to fall through the gaps. This is a 3D maze puzzle game. You guys, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. There's this little game where you try to roll the metal ball, try to get to the end. Very hard. I don't think I've ever successfully won that thing. But AI projects remind me of that because there's so many ways to get from the start of the project to the end and fall through the holes and run into all sorts of problems, whether it's, you know, inadequate data, bad quality data, the improper results, you know, you run into compliance issues, not access to stuff, so many ways to fail. So what we need from a methodology is a way to get from 1 to 100 as successfully as possible by being aware of the pitfalls and managing our projects in a way that rationally makes sense. The other thing about AI projects is that the trust is incredibly important. I don't mean this from like a philosophical sense or a emotional sense. If you cannot trust that the AI system will generate the output that you want, you will not use it. That's what happens. People are like, it does not work, and they will just not use it. So trust is one of those, because we're sort of offloading mental capacity to a machine. If we think that the machine is stupid, we won't use it, and then we won't get any benefit from it. So trust is not just, yes, I need to trust the data sources. I need to trust that there's lack of bias in the data so that it's not skewing results one way or the other. But I also need to trust that it works. And a lot of times this trust even goes to the companies. When organizations say, I may have even heard it earlier, that you may not be allowed to use certain AI tools. Why are we not allowed to use Copilot? Or why can't I use a Zoom transcript recording tool? Is it because we don't trust the functionality of it? No, we know it works. It's because we don't trust the companies where our data is going to. That's the real issue. It's not that we don't trust the LLM, we just don't trust OpenAI. We don't trust, like, our data may go somewhere and then it may go somewhere else, or this organization may use it for something that I don't want them to use it for. This is a trust issue. And it's funny thing, it's not a technology trust issue, it's a company trust issue, and I think it's a well-founded one because maybe we shouldn't be trusting these companies. They violated our trust in many ways in the past. So, but we have to still make use of AI. So how do we manage this trust? How do we manage the trust boundaries? So the last 2 bits, tooling is continuously evolving, and these skill gaps really and truly are real issues. So as I mentioned, AI really isn't like traditional software or technology. These are data projects. So we really have to manage. So think about what we're doing with project management. We have to think about managing a data project where the outcome is a data thing. Like we take some data in, the magic happens with the AI system, and some data comes out. Could be text, could be image, could be analysis, could be something, right? And so the first thing we realized when we were sort of looking at this data is that not all AI projects are the same. We kind of say AI like it's one thing, but from our research, it's actually at least 7 things. It's 7 different things. It's 7 different categories of things. So one of those, we think of it in terms of the applications of AI. So one of those things we may do with AI is have a conversation with the machine, natural language processing, and we want the machine to either understand the language that we're using and do something with it and then speak back to us, or maybe even translate between 2 humans, right? As a matter of fact, that's what the Zoom note-taking app is. It's a conversational application of AI where it just takes the audio and generates the text output from that because it understands and can recognize the natural language. But there's another pattern of AI, that's the recognition pattern, that's different. That used to actually be the hottest area of AI, where it's like you have an image, it could tell you there are cats in the image and where the cats are, and you can tell you hot dog, not hot dog. It's a classification problem. It's a separate pattern of AI: image recognition, facial recognition, object detection, handwriting recognition, all these sorts of things. The other thing with AI is we can use AI to do predictive analytics, where we have AI to help us figure out what the next step might be or help us make decisions, or AI to help us do pattern and anomaly detection, figure out which things are like each other or which things are not like each other for either product recommendations or fraud detection. We can also have AI systems that do things autonomously. So originally, autonomous vehicles, cars that can go around, but now we're realizing the power of autonomy with software, AI agents, agentic systems. These are bots that can do things on their own, which implies a level of trust again, but it has a whole level of, if we trust getting into a car and the car is going to drive us somewhere and not drive us off a cliff, which is a risk, then do we trust the AI software systems to navigate our marketing or sales or CRM systems and not drive the data into a cliff? A very, very comparable example. And then we also have the hyper-personalization pattern, which are AI systems that can develop a profile of the individual and then cater everything towards that individual. Hottest area right now, hyper-personalized education, right? Hyper-personalized finance, hyper-personalized medicine, and marketing, of course, always. But this is the area where AI has some power and some capability to really tailor things specifically for the individual. And the final pattern here is what's called the goal-driven systems. We can have AI systems that try to solve puzzles, solve games, try to figure out how to get from one point to the other, do this navigation. Now, these are all fall within AI, but I think inherently we know these projects are not the same. Building a chatbot is not like building an autonomous vehicle. It's not like building a chess player or like a fraud detection system. They're very different. They have very different times in terms of how long they take, complexities, risks, autonomous having the highest risks, highest complexity, recognition systems, some of the lowest risks, except for the use of facial recognition, you're not supposed to. So it also implies different tools. The tools that may be good for one are not good for the other. We can't use an LLM to drive a car, at least not yet. We can, recognition systems are not good for hyper-personalization, et cetera, et cetera. And we also implies different use of data. This is already the first tip-off that when we're asked to do AI, we need to think about the pattern of AI first. So by way of example here, Walmart fell into this trap where they applied the wrong pattern to the wrong job here, where they had a shelf scanning robot that would go down the shelves and count the inventory. And as you can see here from this article, they had to give up on that quickly. So if I ask you, now that you know a little bit about the patterns of AI, which pattern or patterns of AI was this autonomous little bot doing? May have tipped it off a little bit. Well, one pattern was the recognition pattern. It had a camera that would scan the store shelves and it would count the inventory to do the little inventory thing. And the other pattern is the recognition pattern. I'm sorry, the autonomous systems pattern, where it would try to navigate the store shelves and figure out where it is. Which of the two patterns do you think is the harder one? The autonomous systems pattern, right? The bot was failing because it probably couldn't figure out where it was going. It was very complex and very expensive to do that. What they could have done is just put a camera on a shopping cart and just had a person pushing it down the aisle. They would have gotten all the ROI they were looking for, shortened the time to do counting of inventory, removed all the complexity. People are really good at walking. They're just not really good at counting fast. And machines are really good at counting fast. They're just not really good at walking. So, Reese's Pieces, my peanut butter, your chocolate, put it together. It would have worked. They could have probably produced it in a couple of weeks. Would have cost them a lot less money, a lot less complexity. They have to deal with some crazy bot running people over. So just deal with people running people over, which happens all the time. So this is one of those issues. Why are we doing AI here? Like, was it just because it was cool? Was it because it was a FOMO factor? They didn't know what problem they were solving. They didn't know what pattern they were solving. All of these factors, right? And as a project manager, one of the things we would talk about, like, let's figure out what is the scope? What are we trying to do? Let's match the solution to the problem so we can get to success faster. Oops, sorry, it comes as no surprise that with the data-dependent system, data quantity and quality are the main issues with AI projects. As I was referring to with the sales forecasts, if I had 100 spreadsheets and I told you I'm going to do a data analysis, where do you think you're going to be spending all of your time? Collecting the data sheets, cleaning the data sheets, doing all that. Spend very little time running the formula, right? Same thing with AI projects. In our research that we did over the past decade, we found that over 80% of the time in any AI project is spent on data collection, data cleaning, data aggregation, data enhancement, data labeling, data augmentation, very little time on the fun parts of making the AI system work. And you might think, this doesn't apply to me because I'm not building my own models from scratch. I'm just doing generative AI. I'll be like, oh, it applies to you even more. Because if you're using prompts, how much time does it take to actually run and execute the prompt? Versus how much time does it take to actually create the prompt at the beginning and then deal with the outputs? You're spending almost all of your time on formulating the inputs and the outputs and very little bit of part of the time on actually generating them. So even in generative AI systems, you're probably spending 90 to 95% of your time on the data management parts and very little on the execution parts because you're trying to get the model to do what you want. So you have to, garbage in is garbage out. You know, good quality stuff is good quality out. So you have to manage that part. So another little bit here is what's called the proof of concept trap, where a lot of organizations fall into this problem where sometimes they can do something and it works with AI in a very simple case, but then they try it in sort of the general case and it fails. That's because we think that, because we have this experience with other technology things, where it's like, well, I'll build a website and I'll test it with a small community or build some app. And if it works in that small community, it'll work with a larger community. That works because the functionality is the same. But in a data-driven system, testing something in a small environment where that doesn't represent the real environment means you really haven't tested anything at all. And if you think that only sort of new people who are new to AI fall into this trap, I'll tell you this happens even with the most qualified, experienced people in AI. So you probably know who this fellow is. This is Andrew Ng, or if you don't, very well-known AI researcher, founder of Coursera, DataDeepLearning.ai, AI researcher at Baidu and Google. He definitely knows what he's talking about, deep learning, machine learning expert, right? No one can accuse him of not knowing what's doing. But here they developed an application where they were using medical radiology imagery. They were training a machine learning model to help them do what's called a first pass to understand maybe what the issues might be in the medical image data. Aneurysm, break, potential tumor, something like that. And what they found was, well, they trained it on the best quality data with the best researchers. And here's the quote from the IEEE Spectrum where it says, it turns out that when you take that same model, the one that they had built with all the best quality data and proved in their proof of concept it worked, that was the proof, that same AI system to an older hospital down the street with an older machine, and the technician uses a slightly different imaging protocol, that data drifts to cause the performance of the AI system to degrade significantly, meaning it stops working. It stops working well. It's just whatever accuracy it had, it doesn't have it. In contrast, any human radiologist can walk down the street to the older hospital and do just fine. So what was the fault? Was it bad technology? They used the wrong tools? Was it bad people? They didn't know what they were doing? Or was it bad process, right? Bad process. What should they have done? They should have started with the older hospital data and proved that it worked there. That would have been a pilot. Instead, they did a proof of concept where they used the best data, in which case, what did they prove? Not much. They proved that the machine learning system only works in this best case, in which case it's not the real world, so it doesn't actually prove anything. It was a waste of everybody's time and money, unfortunately. So moving along here, because I want to give Yvonne plenty of time to talk as well. The other thing that people realize is that AI projects are continuous, that there's really no such thing as set it and forget it because data is constantly changing. What does what's called data drift and decay, and models drift and decay over time. And usually the projects fail when you don't budget enough time or resources to maintain the model. The use case, the example here from the real world is Air Canada built a ChatGPT-based customer service bot they put on their website. They thought, what could go wrong? We trained it on our internal data, our FAQ, our website. It was used what's called a RAG, a retrieval augmented generation, where they constrained the responses only to the data that they gave it, et cetera, et cetera. And what happened was a customer asked what Air Canada's policy was on a bereavement fare, which is a fare that you would get a refund if there was a death in the family. The chatbot was happy to say, yes, of course, well, Air Canada will give you a refund. But when they tried to get it, Air Canada said, no, that's not correct. If you read our website policy or policy, we don't do that. And so the customer took Air Canada to court, sued them, and won. Because the sum of Air Canada's argument was that, well, you can't trust the chatbot. Trust the website. The chatbot's not authoritative. The website is. It's like, well, what are you saying then? That the chatbot's useless? I mean, what's the point? Is it just entertainment? So, but they could have done many things. They could have, kept a human in the loop, which would have been the non-set it and forget it approach, and say anything that responds about pricing, fare, discounts, refunds, maybe needs a human to verify. They could have put a disclaimer on it. They could have done many things, but they didn't. They set it and forget it, and this is the danger that happens. So I think the last major failure mode here for AI is that the tooling. The tooling, as I mentioned, is way ahead of where we are. And a lot of times we try to fit the wrong tool to the wrong solution here. We're trying to fit the wrong solution to the wrong problem, I guess. And in this particular case, IBM Watson, which was arguably one of the first to market with AI capabilities, they bet the bank on health, and AI just wasn't that good at it, and it failed. And they ended up closing the whole group and selling it off for parts. But I think more realistically, I am still constantly seeing people who are posting online on LinkedIn or wherever saying, "Oh, look, this LLM can't do math. I asked it 3 plus 3 times 9 to the 12th power and I got it wrong." And they're like, look how stupid the LLM is. And like, well, yeah, it's not that smart, but also you're using the wrong tool for the wrong job. It's a large language model. It's not and so it doesn't even look at the numbers as numbers. It looks at the numbers as words. So it thinks 3 is just a token, just trying to predict the next word in the sentence that starts with 3 plus 3 times 9 to the 12th power based on the internet of data it was trained on. Now the machine learning models, well, I would say the companies have gotten smarter because they've built on top of their language focused models, reasoning models. And those reasoning models, like the O models and things like that, try to figure out what you're asking for. And then once it figures out what you're asking for, then it determines the right internal tool to use. It's getting it better. But this is obvious that machines lack common sense. They don't really know what you're asking. A model is just whatever the model's trained to do. And in this case of a large language model, generate outputs, text outputs based on text inputs. So this goes down to we need to know what we're doing. The vendors are happy to sell tools that work for specific use cases, but who's going to determine what they're good for? We need to. We need to figure out what tools are good for what job, so that way we're not getting to the situation like, oh, look how dumb it is. There, it's like, well, it's good for the 7 patterns of AI if we could figure out which problems are best suited to each of those patterns. So like the last, I would say, much more common mode for AI project failure is we're constantly over-promising on what AI can do and just under-delivering it. We get caught into this maybe sometimes science fiction-y trap where if a machine like starts to exhibit a little bit of intelligence, we go racing ahead. We're like, wow, it can generate Shakespeare-like poetry. We are around the corner from super intelligence. I'm like, okay, wait, how did we get there? Wait, didn't you just say that it can't count the number of bees in the word blueberry? And all of a sudden now you're telling me this is super intelligent? We have Waymo vehicles that are getting stuck in intersections, but like we're inches away from, you can kind of tell where I'm on this spectrum. And I think, the truth of the matter is because this is what intelligence does. We get caught into that loop of fantasy because we know how our brains work, right? And so we're like, oh, well, a machine that it can exhibit a little bit of intelligence, surely it can exhibit a lot more. And this is maybe it's science fiction, maybe it's just the way that we are with intelligence. Like if we start, like imagine a dog starts talking to us like in English, we'd be like, what the heck? Let's start, having like deep conversations with the dog. I don't really know if that would ever happen. But, I would say LLMs share a lot more in common with parrots than they do with intelligent animals because they're really good at intelligent repetition, but that doesn't mean they understand what they're saying. So when we do AI projects, we need to always be asking the questions, why are we using AI? Are we promising too much from what the AI solution can do? Are we more invested in doing AI than solving the problem? Do we even know what problem we're trying to solve, whether AI is a good fit? Why are we tackling the hardest problem first? And then why are we trying to tackle too many patterns of AI at the same time? So this is all a lead up because there is a methodology. And the interesting thing is there was a methodology a couple decades ago called CRISP-DM that evolved from data mining projects where it was purely data projects. So it didn't really matter what the technology was, but we needed to do these big data analysis projects. This was the era of Y2K, if you remember this, where everybody was scrambling to get data out of their legacy systems, right? And realized that we needed a methodology for doing it. The problem is that it really hadn't been iterated. It wasn't AI specific, and it wasn't iterative and agile. So we dusted it off and said, hey, this is not a bad methodology for AI, where we start with understanding what the business requirements are, map the AI specific capabilities to those requirements, following the 7 patterns and using what's called the AI go, no go. Then from that, we understand what our data requirements are for that project, knowing that all AI projects are data projects. From that, we can do the preparing the data to meet the needs. Then we do our tool selection or tool implementation, because at least now we know what the right tool is for the job. And we also know that we have the data in the first place and it's prepared. Then we basically figure out if the model is delivering real value in the real world, right? So we get out of the POC trap. and we evaluate it. Is it delivering results? Does it work? Are we at the right level of accuracy, performance? And then we do what's called model operationalization, which is a fancy way of saying we deploy this model in the real world, but continuously keeping an eye on it so that we're not setting it and forgetting it. It's a pretty rational method, honestly. It's just a methodology and an approach, but it's a step by, it like sort of gives us a framework so that we can do things in a consistent basis. As I mentioned, so here's that overview. And the only thing I want to add to this is that it's iterative, meaning, and it's, so it allows you, if you're like doing your AI project and you realize you don't have enough data, or you don't have the right data, you don't have to keep moving forward. You can move back and say, let's rescope the project, let's pick a different pattern, let's maybe pick different data sets, whatever we need to do, because the goal is success. The goal isn't just to implement. The goal is let's be successful, and you might realize you run into that wall sooner than you think. So mentioned it's based on a couple, this methodology is based on a couple of proven real world practices. Of course, Agile being established as a good practice for highly iterative projects that are constantly changing, allows us to respond to it. Crisp DM, which is a prior approach for managing data-centric projects, gives us some instructions on how to, the ordering of steps to do a data project. And of course, AI-specific things, which are the AI patterns, the trustworthy AI framework, and a lot of the specific capabilities. So it goes without saying that this has been now around for a decade. Many organizations have put this into place. Large pharma company has implemented this, trained their entire staff on CPMAI, mainly to help them figure out which AI projects to do and not do. It's easy to be successful if you avoid the projects that have a high probability of failure. And then also it really helps them with compliance and regulations by giving them a place to document their capabilities and put that in a common framework. Large Swedish retail furniture company, you know probably exactly what I'm talking about, translates products into more languages than anyone else. They're using AI to do this on a more consistent, effective, efficient basis, deliver ahead of schedule and ahead of cost. I talked about the federal government agency and what they're doing, but the more important thing is that they're using it for procurement. They're really focusing on how can we use AI to help us decide which tools to use, which means they're matching AI capabilities with real world solutions. And then finally, lots of consulting and advisory firms are starting to use CPMAI as a delivery to their customers. So they can do things in a rational, valid order, deliver value, and have a way to document it. So this all, now I get to the CPMAI training insert, and then you get to Yvonne here. And that's PMI now as part of the acquisition. So Cognilytica was an independent company, formed about a decade ago. PMI acquired Cognilytica last year in 2004. We brought all of our training, all of our certification, our core materials, assets into PMI. It's now part of the PMI library, part of the PMI ecosystem. CPMAI is now a specialized certification within PMI that inherits all the same capabilities, the learning experience, the dashboard, all that sort of good stuff. And it's based on all these capabilities. So we have a free intro course if you're interested in learning more about CPMAI. It provides an overview of CPMAI. You could take it for free if you're a PMI member. If you're not a PMI member, you could sign up for a free membership and learn about it. Learn more about the primary causes of AI project failure, an understanding of the 7 patterns of AI, and a couple of PDUs as well. So on that note, I just want to now shift it over to Yvonne, hopefully tell you a little more about her practical experiences with CPMAI. And I'd say this is really an opportunity for the project profession to not only become literate and aware and capable with AI, but really lead these AI project transformations, as AI is really like the biggest transformative thing that's on the block right now. I moved a little quickly, but wanted to make sure I gave Yvonne some time as well. All right, to you, Yvonne.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, do you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to go fast. And I'm excited to share this space with Ron, one of the co-developers of the CPMAI methodology, and also provide my perspective on the value of the certification, especially that knowing that the interest is growing in higher education. A little bit about myself. I'm the IT PMO lead at Sonoma State University, one of the 23 campuses in the California State University system. And I recently earned the CPMAI certification. I think it was at the beginning of the year. I registered just when they were transitioning from Cognilytica to the PMI system. And as an early adopter of emerging best practices, I was searching for that methodology, AI-specific methodology. So at the beginning, I was learning the AI tools to help me do my project management work. But then I was thinking, wait a minute, who is managing or leading these projects, the implementation of these AI tools? So I wanted to learn more about it. So when I heard about the CPMAI methodology during the PMI summit last year in Los Angeles, I said, this is what I'm looking for. I registered and I took it. And so I just wanted to provide more information in addition to what Ron said. This more specific about higher education and um, based on Educause study, the AI landscape study in 2025, they identified that 57% of institutions view AI as a strategic priority. Teaching and learning is the focus area, and now administration processes is taking the second place. So it's very important for us to know that the interest is growing. This it's a strategic priority for many of our leaders. I have some use cases in enrollment and admissions processes on how some academic institutions are using AI or to improve that process. So they're using AI-powered chatbots. So this is an example of the conversational pattern that Ron was talking about, how to use AI to provide 24/7 support to students and helping them get answers to the common questions. Also using predictive analytics to analyze historical enrollment data and identify students that will most likely enroll. So it's kind of that hyper-personalization, predictive analytics and hyper-personalization of the enrollment process and CRM integration with AI to automate and personalize that application process as well. Just wanted to also provide some uh, information about Sonoma State. We just recently launched an AI recruiter that is helping our potential students or new students to find out more about our processes or campus life, etc. So that is live now. And as Ron was saying, so there are still many challenges in AI, implementing AI projects. And the Boston consulting group, they did a research and they found that 10% of those challenges were due to AI algorithms. Then 20% were due to technological issues. And the interesting part is that the 70% is due to people and processes. And so many companies are making the mistake of focusing only on the technical part and neglecting the human and organizational factors. And this is where I think structured methodologies like CPMAI are going to help us increase the success rates. So to me, it's very clear that AI doesn't just need algorithms, but it needs leadership. And this is a great opportunity for us as project leaders. We can play that strategic role in maximizing value and success rate for AI initiatives. We have experience, we have the skill set, we know that best practices work, so we need to learn this new CPMAI methodology to help our academic institutions align with the business goals. So as this just was Ron was saying, we need to help them identify if those are AI projects or not, if they're going to provide value to our organization. Also, we know how to facilitate cross-functional collaboration, knowing which teams need to work together to get that data, who owns the data, who needs to work with the data, uh, manage risks and complexity, so anticipate challenges, knowing that we need to work with data. 80% of the time of a project is going to be spent on data. So integrating, scaling early, and help our teams be prepared. And also plan for the full life cycle. As Ron was saying, the life cycle is going to continue. Just once you put it into production, you need to think about retraining, validating how your model is working because data is constantly changing. And also help our organizations understand what AI is capable of doing or delivering and what it cannot do. So just in conclusion, PMs, we can bring that structure, that clarity and accountability to turn AI potential into business impact. Now, if you are also a PMO lead, the benefits of integrating CPMAI and trustworthy AI. So the CPMAI training comes, I think it's an additional part now, Ron, for the ethical piece. There is a trustworthy framework that also helps you know how you can implement trustworthy AI throughout the life cycle of your project, reducing biases, making sure that data is secured, etc. So this is going to position your PMO as a strategic partner in digital and AI transformation. It's going to help you support the AI project prioritization. So which projects will provide the most value or to your organization faster, and also which projects you shouldn't be working on because AI projects are going to consume resources. They are expensive. Assess your organizational AI readiness. It comes with a workbook with a checklist and questions for each phase of this methodology that will help you understand if your organization or that team that wants to implement a tool is ready to implement AI solutions. Also offers that practical, repeatable approach to support responsible AI implementation and increase project success rates. And finally, it's going to enhance credibility and governance of your PMO in AI implementation. So how I'm using CPMAI in my IT PMO lead role at Sonoma State University. So as with many institutions, we are in the early phases of AI implementation, but I see my role and my responsibility on preparing early to help our institution for a strategic AI transformation. I'm currently leading our Campus AI Initiative program and working with our CIO and cross-functional teams to increase AI implementation and adoption for administrative processes. So CPMAI helps me engage with those executive sponsors and cross-functional teams with more confidence, knowing the language and knowing what needs to happen in the background, plan ahead and align with the stakeholders, thinking about how we can scale these solutions later on, advocate for trustworthy AI to reduce bias and ensure ethical, responsible solutions, especially for higher education. We need to pay attention to regulation, being in compliance, and also have a data-centric mindset. So always thinking about use cases, but do we have the data, the quality, the volume of data? Are we ready to implement that? So I highly recommend the certification. Get ready, be prepared. My lessons from my CPMAI journey, as you know, you may know change management frameworks. You need to have the awareness of the need to change and also desire to change. I think it's we all know, we are aware of the need for leadership in AI projects implementation. And I hope, like me, you feel the desire to take action and be a leader in this transformation. So the next step for you is get that knowledge. So learn about AI, machine learning, big data fundamentals, collaborate with experts, community of practices, and also get the CPMAI certification. But don't stay there because that's just the theoretical knowledge. For me, it's important to gain experience. I think the difference is in understanding the implementation. I don't want to be an expert, a technical expert, but I see my vision as a strategic leader, and I need to understand what happens in the background. So just learning how to implement GPTs or how to implement AI agents, that will help you understand how to tailor the methodology to those types of projects. So learn more, implement, and reinforce your learning. For me, it's important to keep in mind my vision, how I see myself, my role to lead this type of transformation. Just to finish and give some time for Q&A, just want to have a call to action for everyone. The AI transformation, as Ron said, is not for tomorrow, it's today. And as project leaders, we have the opportunity and also responsibility to be an active part of this evolution. It's not just about technology, but it's also about ethical, strategic, and human leadership. We know that we don't want to replace people, so we need to take part of that to make sure that we have the right mindset and that we lead the future and we are not waiting for it to arrive. So are we ready to
We
lead?
are. Yeah, thank you so much, Yvonne. We are ready for questions. Now, I will say this to the group. We are approaching the bottom of this hour, so to the end of the hour, I should say. So I'm happy to keep people on so we can do questions as long as Yvonne and Ron have time for us.
Yep.
Don't want to take up their day either. But let's go ahead and entertain some questions if you've got them. Put those in chat so that we can get to those efficiently and call them out as they pop up. I will say, Ron and Yvonne, while people are thinking about their questions, great job. There's a lot of positive feedback in there in the chat about the presentation, which is why I didn't like do a time stop on the two of you. I wanted to let you guys finish. I also want to thank Carol. I think she's left already, but she was took point on coordinating this presentation and establishing connection there with Ron and coordinating with Yvonne. And so definitely want to shout out to her for taking the time to help us put this together.
Great.
So
And if
I'm
you have
ready.
questions later, we can make ourselves available to respond offline as well. So
Sure
things
thing.
come to you overnight. That's fine too.
Yeah. I will say this. Yeah, thank you, Dina. I had a comment, not necessarily such a question. You made earlier in your presentation, you had commented on if you cannot trust the tool, that people won't use it. Classic IT
Right.
thing, of course, right? I just finished watching an interview with Sam Altman, the OpenAI CEO, and his philosophy was to get ChatGPT out there as quickly as possible because he wanted
Mm,
the users, the population to test it. And
mm.
it just made me think what a risk he was taking by doing that. Clearly, he must have had some testing going on behind the scenes before he released it. But once you push it out to the public, you're taking that chance.
Yeah, is it to move fast and break things is sort of traditional Silicon Valley
Yep.
mantra. But when it
Yep.
comes to AI, I don't know if that really works that well, especially if we're using it for some pretty high risk situations. So it's a challenge to present an alternate uh, mode of adoption.
So there's a question in there. It looks like you want to
Yes.
field that one next, Ron.
Yeah, and maybe Yvonne as well would love to get your feedback on this. So the question has to do with whether the CPMAI certification incorporates pieces of change management within its processes, as significant data pieces in it, and change management is another component. And the answer is absolutely. It's interesting how everything kind of really ties back to each other when we're talking about processes and managing expectations and cost and delivery schedules. Yeah, a lot of it comes down to people management, change management, process management. We don't, in the CPMAI, we don't, certification itself, we don't introduce concepts of change management. However, we tie it back to many of the processes involved in change management. I think in the not too distant future, I think we're going to start to see all of these different methodologies, certifications, and approaches starting to kind of not merge together, but kind of be jointly done in tandem, so that way we can be more holistic about it. I don't know, Yvonne, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think CPMAI cover some pieces of change management, but if they want to complement, ProSci has an AI integration framework, and I think combining um, both frameworks will help you really create a very robust strategy.
Yeah, agreed.
Other questions from the group? Yeah. So I know both myself and Christina said that your presentations don't have to be long, and I said they don't even have to be conference grade presentations. And then we go and pull something like this and have Ron and Yvonne give an awesome presentation.
And it looks like
The-
we have one more
Oh,
question though. Somebody,
Oh, perfect.
Sharif, you have your
Perfect.
hand raised. You can
uh,
unmute.
yes, Sharif.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I was started to type in. I thought to probably ask you.
Okay.
So just based on your experience of the 7 different patterns of AI, based on your experience, is there any specific pattern or patterns that provides more ROI in higher ed based on where we are as an industry and also typically how our data is structured, how our organizations are structured?
Hmm.
Or else which of the patterns we should probably stay away from where we are not not as mature?
The funny thing is, so I don't know if you know this, but I also write for Forbes, and I cover the topic of AI applications for Forbes. And I actually recently covered Instructure's addition of AI capabilities into Canvas. I'm sure you've seen that, hard to miss, as well as what's going on back into the operational side of higher education. So the answer is that different patterns provide different ROI benefits. We're using the conversational pattern to interact with anything that involves natural language. So you can imagine a lot of stuff that has to do with, interacting more deeply with the course material, but even extends, this is the one part that I'm like a little controversial, extends to things like automating grading and automating things like evaluating the quality of the responses. I think we need to be a little careful there. Different patterns, right? The grading part comes down to the pattern anomaly stuff and the predictive analytics stuff. So I would say that the best part is to focus first on what you want the desired outcome to be, and then use that to map back to the pattern. In which case I've seen most of those work very well. The hyper personalization is the one pattern that offers the most promise, because it's the idea that every person, every student can have their experiences tailored specific to them. But by nature, that requires a lot of data collection to do that. And also, there's a lot of nuance in terms of both bias in data sets as well as being careful, because we're now seeing a lot of examples of people becoming a little too familiar with their personalized AI assistant, all sorts of danger cases there. So it's funny, you have to balance the risk reward. But most of those patterns, the one area that I haven't really seen too much of is like probably the goal driven stuff at this point. But yeah, applications across the board.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks, Yvonne, for your response to the chapter.
Thank you, Shuri, for the question.
Yes,
Yeah.
and correct. Fastest time to value, conversational pattern. Yeah, because the tools are there. So
Yeah, we implemented our GPT for our PMO office, and it was fast.
And that's where one of the use cases that we've seen better option. Also, conversational pattern, it seems to be one that's taking on.
Yeah.
What I was worried about is getting caught up in the hype, right? Which of the other patterns probably you should stay away from for now. Or right. Thank
Some
you.
of them, for sure. Okay. Well, I guess on that note, I'll thank you all very much. Well,
Yeah.
I'll be available for additional feedback and questions if you're interested at any point.
Thank you so much, Ron and Yvonne. And again, to finish the thought before any presentation, the point of this community group is to get the community to share. So as long as that's the only criteria, is it something that's shareable? We want to hear from you. So awesome. And with that, I think we can close this out. Not seeing any more. Oops, we got this conference information. I don't know, Christina, can you do this in 1 minute flat?
I will try. Yeah, here's the list of the program tracks at Educause. So if there's anything there that you're interested, the registration button there will take you to the registration page for Educause. If you need to make an argument as to why you should go to Educause, we have some great templates and resources for you to share with your leadership to get that approval. The in-person conferences in October and then virtuals in November. And then just to look ahead at next month, Ed, if you want to talk about what
So September meeting, there's the date and time there, September 9th, 2 p.m. Eastern time, working on a collaboration with Airtable. You may be familiar with them. They are, for lack of a better expression, and the lack of time I have, they're essentially a spreadsheet on steroids, good for lots of different applications, including project management, but they've also integrated AI. Again, this is not us trying to push product. That's not what this community group is about, but it's about partnering both with our education partners as well as our vendor partners and sharing ideas. So I'm going to be fleshing more of that presentation out in the next month, and hopefully I know we'll be ready by September 9th. So looking forward to seeing everyone there. All righty. With that said, I think we can close this out. Trying to cram it all in an hour, and we almost did it, only 7 minutes late. So there you go. Thank you guys. I hope you have a great day and awesome what's left of the rest of the week.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you. Bye.
I'll stop the recording.